5G, global race? And if there is, what parameters do you think are determining who is winning? And before you answer that, I want to mention this Race to 5G report, which was out during late summer, I believe, from CTIA, and it actually provided a 5G readiness index, and it highlighted, and it was actually measuring all the countries and said US is actually number 3 behind China and Korea. And some of the parameters actually they highlighted that through which they are actually measuring the 5G readiness. So I want to actually touch on that and see your opinion on that.
Sure. So here, in my view, the race is a great metaphor. We can all relate to it. And I think the reason why it's a vivid metaphor is that there is tremendous interest in 5G all over the world, and it's certainly true. No country, no region wants to be left behind because they see the tremendous economic value that 5G can generate, which was alluded to earlier. We sponsored a study that found that would be something like $12 trillion of value to the global economy delivered by 5G. So that's A. And B, everyone wants better connectivity. In the history of the world, has anyone ever given back his or her connected device because, you know, it works too well, I don't need to be connected anymore? No, we all want the next best, fastest thing, and that's not just we, everyone in this room in Washington, D.C., or we, everyone in the United States. That is absolutely global. I haven't gone anywhere in the world where I don't see billboards for the next coolest smartphone with the fastest capability. So it's a race in the sense of nobody wants to be behind, no one wants to be left out. Now where I am going to quibble though is I don't think you can say with precision this country is in X place in this race, because again, and I don't think that's really a helpful way to look at it, because you know, again, from Qualcomm's point of view, you know, we're trying to get this technology rolled out as quickly as possible. When we produce a chip, you know, and we sell it to XYZ handset vendor, we don't even know with certainty exactly which phone that chip is going to go into to be launched in which country. So, you know, I will say, I don't think the United States is in third place in 5G. I think the United States is doing a great job. Are there things the United States needs to do better, enabling more small cell deployment, having small cells rolled out more rapidly, moving ahead with these spectrum initiatives and getting the spectrum over the goal line? But you know, the great thing is spectrum and 5G, that's not a Democratic issue or a conservative issue. We just had an election. I didn't see one candidate anywhere in the country having a vote for me because my opponent isn't good for spectrum. Everyone in the political ideology, no matter what your political ideology is, you want to see 5G launched, and that's why I think the United States is in a strong position, but we have a lot of work to do, as I think everyone agrees.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, maybe a perspective, you know, as they mentioned, I think the variation across the globe, I mean, we have customers in every part of the world, so we have kind of that perspective on what's going on, especially in Asia. But just a few things, few points. First, obviously it's all about the economy, right? I mean, the impact, you did give some numbers about the impact in the US, the impact globally that did mention. So, yeah, 5G is really an enabler of, you know, of GDP improvements across the world. From that perspective, it is extremely important. The stakes are very high. Not only because it impacts consumers, but for the first time you see promises of impacting the future of industry. People say Industry 4.0, which means that the wireless infrastructure that you put in place enables new applications, new way to produce, to develop Internet of Things, to develop, you know, connected transport, to bring the economy to really the next levels. And it's not just all about the people, but all the machines that, you know, can provide services to people that then create, you know, this enormous lever in terms of GDP improvement. The second point is it's kind of still very important because of the stakes to understand how you can secure your production capabilities. You know, of course, we have great production facilities, technology development in the US, but you want to secure that this this production, this leadership remains intact when you have massive population imbalances between Asia and let's say, you know, the Americas. You want to make sure that you keep the game even. Because there are some security issues, obviously, that go with it. So that's another important point that you want to keep in mind.
Well, from a regulatory standpoint, compared to other countries in the developed world, the U.S. has a lot of challenges. I mean, both with our sheer size, the amount of ground we have to cover, and our federal structure, with the federal government, 50 state governments, thousands and thousands of local governments all having a say in this. But I think as we stand right now, those government entities are taking a leadership position and putting us in a good place to deploy 5G. You know, I think as folks know, the FCC has really taken a leadership position on this in the last year with 3 major orders relating to infrastructure. You have 21 states that have enacted state laws to help speed deployment and make development of small cells easier. So we do see a lot of momentum, and as you mentioned, I think this is largely a bipartisan issue in most of the places we've seen, and there is a lot of resolve on the government side that we want to get this right and be ready for 5G.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, because there are 2 parameters measured. One is the policy-friendly so-called governments who are actually opening and removing all these barriers so that more small cell and densification actually can be possible. And the second is spectrum, which we are going to touch later. But Trevor, I want you to.
Sure. So when we think about network deployments, which 5G is going to be about getting the network built, there's really, we think about 4 forces that really impact the speed and the rate at which that network can be deployed. The first is consumer demand. Is there demand for this service? The second is competition. Is there competition between multiple entities to deploy this network? The third would be the technology and business case. Does somebody think they can make money at it, and is the technology there to support it? And then the fourth is there a regulatory environment that either promotes or at least doesn't prohibit that deployment. And if you think about 5G, a couple things that me are really striking. The participation in the 5G standards by multiple industry bodies has been far greater than any other G in history, right? And that tells me that 5G, unlike 4G, is going to be, I won't say it won't be about consumers, but it's also going to be about business. And a lot of that demand, a lot of that consumer demand is going to be driven by business services or business applications. Not all of it. We talked about, for instance, fixed wireless earlier is a great application that's still consumer-oriented, but there'll be a lot of other applications. If you think about competition, I think particularly in the US, we're entering a phase where the level of competition actually could get amped up a little bit by what's happening with 5G, not only from the auctions that are happening, but as you think about the consumer in the home, over the last 10 years, HFC networks and the legacy cable TV operators have sort of won the battle for in-home networking, right? They won cable modems, beat out DSL. Well, now with fixed wireless, there's a whole other battle that can happen for that consumer. There's a battle that hasn't been yet won for what does the 5G business services look like. And so I think we have a heightened level of competition that we haven't had in the past. And then I think the technology and all the investments that lots of companies are making and the regulatory investments that we're making, to me it seems like we're in a ripe environment for 5G to go very quickly.
So, great points, right? The first one I want to touch though, do you think there is a strong appetite from the consumer about 5G? I mean, of course they are learning about what 5G is, and in general they are saying, yeah, it's going to probably better coverage or faster speed, but are they willing to pay another additional $20 a month? Of course, we talked about it earlier, Samson mentioned that killer app, we don't know what that would be. And I don't think it's going to be just one app that's going to say, yes, I want to sign up for that particular service. You want to...
Yeah, you asked a lot of questions there. But let me give you a couple of answers, and we can take it from there. But is there consumer demand? You mentioned, would somebody as a consumer pay $20 more for more connectivity? To me, the easy answer is if you took a busy couple and they could pay $20 more a month, and their teenagers or their kids weren't calling them saying the Wi-Fi is broken, Dad, can you fix it? They would certainly pay $20 a month in most middle-income families to do that. Matter of fact, if you look at as people are experimenting, as operators are experimenting with higher and higher bandwidth services, they're getting take rates that are astounding to them, right? Take rates higher than they would expect. And it's not that those consumers are actually using it, it's that they have a mental model that says, I'm going to get a better user experience in my home from getting 300 megabit service than I would getting 100 megabit service, even though they don't have any applications other than speed test that actually can use that. And so I think the answer is yes, from a consumer standpoint, they will pay more for a better experience. And actually with 5G, if you think about what network slicing promises to do, it promises to give an experience that is set up for the application that the user is trying to do. So I think the answer there is yes.
Okay.